Hey micro folks, this is the final of the 3 videos for the demand supply equilibrium chapter. So here we're going to the shifts, price floors, price ceilings, or government price controls, however you want to look at that. And this will be the shortest of the 3 videos. So let's get right on into the action. So here we go, changes in demand and equilibrium. So we're going to do changes in demand, changes in supply, and then we got some tables. So basically, if we start at D1 and shift to the right to D2, you will notice that price and quantity both increase. If we start here at D2 and move to D3, you will notice that is a decrease in demand and both price and quantity decrease. So this is kind of simple with demand. If demand increases, price increases, quantity increases. Demand decreases, price decreases, quantity decreases. All really simple. That's as simple as it's going to get, by the way. So please get that one. All right, here we go. Supply. S1 to S2. We're going to increase supply because that is moving to the right. Yay. So quantity is what we're going by as an increase. So quantity is increasing, but price is decreasing. There's more of it. Here's the way that we'll think of it this way. There's more of it out there, and therefore it's less valuable. There's a higher supply, there's more of it, more stuff out there, and therefore you and I, the consumer, see that stuff as less valuable because, hey, we can get it on any street corner now. And, you're getting it in a Happy Meal. So you don't really care that much. You're not going to pay a high price for any of it. S3 to S4, it is a decrease because we're moving to the left. So that is a decrease in supply. There is now less of it. And because there is less of it, it is more valuable and price increases. It is harder to get your hands on that stuff. And so now it is more valuable stuff. I have built a kind of a quick table for all of the different shifts that could occur, dual shifts and single shifts. So let's take a look. Demand up, price goes up, quantity goes up. Demand down, price goes down, quantity goes down. Supply up, price goes down, quantity goes up. Supply down, price goes up, quantity goes down. Now we get into what we call dual shifts. The first dual shifts, demand and supply both go up. The only thing we know there is that quantity is going to go up. The question becomes, what happens to price? Because if demand goes up, price goes up. If supply goes up, price goes down. It depends on the relative size of shift. If the demand shift is greater than the supply shift, price will go up. If the supply shift is greater than the demand shift, price will go down. That is how that works. Okay? Now, demand down, supply down. Once again, what we know is quantity is going down. What we don't know is what is going to happen to price. It is once again a question of relative shift. If the demand shift is greater, price will go down. If the supply shift is greater, price will go up. So, relative size of shift. By the way, if you draw these things exactly the same, demand shift equals supply shift, price does not change. Just a heads up. I used to be terrible about that. I'd be in class trying to show this stuff. I'd draw those things exactly the same and price wouldn't change. They'd be like, I thought you said it was going to go somewhere. Yeah, I'm bad. I'm bad about that. So now I draw them like way exaggerated in class. But that's how that is. Now, split shifts. Demand up, supply down. What we know, price is going to go up. Now, if you want a quick hit on that, it's always going to follow demand. On a split shift, price follows demand. All right. Well, we don't know what's going to happen to quantity. And just like before on the dual shift, it is always about relative size of shift. If demand is greater then what we got is quantity is going to go up. If supply is greater, quantity is going to go down. All right. Demand down, supply up. What we know is price is going to go down. What we don't know is what happens to quantity, relative size of shift. If demand is greater, it's going to go down. If supply is greater, it's going to go up. I hope this helps. To me, this was easier than a bunch of words. I mean, arrows better than words on that. And here's the words version. If words are easier for you, there's that on the dual complex cases. So there's that. All right. There you go. Global perspective, average price of a loaf of white bread in selected nations 2020. Notice that Norway is past $3, and not just slightly past $3, it's way the heck past $3. It is expensive to get a 500 gram or 1.1 pound loaf of white bread in Norway. In the US, it's somewhere over $2.50. Canada, a little bit over $2. Guatemala, just a tad over $2. Japan, just under $2. All the way down to India, which is somewhere under 50 cents. Yeah, it's kind of interesting. We just, this is being filmed summer of 23. We just got back from Italy and Barcelona, Rome and Barcelona, and then March we took a trip to Paris with the college, and it's interesting because in France they subsidize baguettes. No baguette's going to cost you more than $1. So that's the way that's going to go. Every baguette, you're going to pay no more than $1 for a baguette. And then Rome, it was a little more expensive. And then in Barcelona, we paid 50. My wife's like on that number now. It's 54 cents for a baguette in Barcelona. It was the cheapest of all the three. And so it's kind of nuts. And so that was kind of interesting to us. We weren't buying white bread. So, we weren't buying loaves of bread for that. So government set prices. So you've got price ceilings and price floors. It's like the room. The rules of the room are the same. You can't go above the ceiling. You can't go below the floor. But the room is upside down. Your ceiling will be below equilibrium. Your floor has to be above equilibrium. And there's reasons for that. Okay, so the price ceiling has to be set below equilibrium price because you're going to hit the ceiling. You're trying to protect equilibrium. Equilibrium can't be touched. So you're going to set the price ceiling below equilibrium so people hit the ceiling and they stop at the ceiling. If you set the ceiling above equilibrium, then people are going to stop at equilibrium, or there's going to be pressure to equilibrium, and it's going to be an ineffective ceiling. Nobody's ever going to hit it. This is going to cause a rationing problem. It will cause black markets. People will basically start doing shady stuff. The best example is rent controls in those cities that have them: New York, Atlanta, Chicago, San Francisco. New York, you've got that system where basically whatever you pay the first month is what you pay for life. And so when grandma dies, the kids basically start paying the grandma's rent and don't tell anybody she died. And you have some of those other weird things where like you're supposed to live there, and you have these celebrities that will get rent control apartments, not live there, and do shady stuff with the rent control, because one of the rent control zones is right off of Central Park. And so it's like a nice area. And but they're really kind of mean. They're not the nicest celebrities. And so their neighbors turn them in, and then they get all mean about being evicted. They get all like entitled and stuff about being evicted. And it's just kind of an interesting news story about, such and such celebrity got evicted from their rent control apartment because they weren't ever supposed to be there in the first place. So it's just it's one of those things. So here's how that goes. So if, and this definitely isn't rent control because the equilibrium price is $3.50. But if you set the ceiling for $3, it causes a shortage. And the lower you go, the larger the shortage would be, right? And so the more problems you would have, and the closer to equilibrium you are, the less problems you would have. But it's one of those kinds of things. Price floor has to be above the market price. You're going to have chronic surpluses, and the more above market equilibrium you are, the more problems you're going to have. The best example for this is minimum wage, and so whatever the market wage is, and we can argue on whatever the market wage is. Minimum wage, in I don't even know that minimum wage is above market wage anymore because people seem to be at that right now. But at this point, if market is the basic equilibrium is $2 and you have a surplus of $3 or a floor of $3 that causes a surplus, and if you raise that to $4, it'll be a larger surplus, and so you create that. So basically, you look at this two ways. One, the ceiling is built to protect the consumers. In the instance of rent control, the idea is we don't want grandma on the street. We don't want to see grandma be homeless just because greedy landlords decided it was a good idea to keep raising rent. And so, that's the way that works. And that was the idea behind rent controls in those high demand areas. So, price floors are built to protect firms or producers, protect them from themselves. They are guaranteed a minimum price so that they are around. So one of those, and we do minimum wage, technically you are selling your labor. So it protects the seller, you're selling your labor. So the minimum wage does that. Also, price supports for agriculture. We like the idea that farmers are still around next year. We don't want them to go out of business because they sold their crops for too low and they can't meet costs. So price supports actually help us do that. So that's the idea behind price floors and price ceilings. So your last word on this, most obvious economic effect of the pandemic initially was empty store shelves. Who could ever forget the toilet paper debacle? Consumers rushed to stock up on certain things, causing those shortages. Retail prices remain largely fixed. Shortages, and then some people did this whole thing where they couldn't change prices. Some states got really stupid with that, and that's a really bad policy, by the way. That's why I say they got stupid with it. That's a really bad policy to do that. To say, hey, by the way, you can't change your prices. So shortages resulted as demand far exceeded the supply. So when you have supply chain issues and the government tells you can't change your prices, yeah, that's a bad, bad policy. So the pandemic economics also resulted in a crash in the stock prices, a spike in the price of used cars, and that was a chip issue, which we're still trying to fix. We had a discussion on that last semester, I believe. So the federal government has actually started, I think, 2 plants to build semiconductor chips here in the U.S. just because of the fact that we didn't have any. So that's a national defense and a consumer issue here in the U.S. Increased demand for housing in suburban and rural areas. Um, and so that's becoming an issue as well. I've been reading on that where they're talking about doing like increasing density in some of those areas with the mother-in-law units or ADUs in certain areas, which in most of the country those are illegal, but they're wanting to change those laws just to help increase density. and bring families, like whether or not it's other family members or whatever, bring them into those areas. And so we also had widespread labor shortages. So it's kind of an interesting thing. The pandemic changed a lot of things, and not all of it's been fixed since then. But it was a very interesting time, and um, we're still dealing with some of it. We haven't fully got the supply chain fixed. The semiconductor thing is still going on, um, and the labor thing, to an extent, is still going on. All right, so that's everything for chapter 3. Everybody have a great day. We'll talk to you later. Bye now.